Well, welcome to Southwest Survival. Once again, my name is Jan. Today I'm going to teach you how to get food with just a stick and a rock. So we're going to make what I call a hinge trigger. It's also known as a promontory peg. This is my favorite trap trigger. It's gotten me lots and lots of meat, and it's simple to make. So let's go ahead and get right to it. First thing we have to do is figure out where the animals are going to be at. So what I tell people is we're always looking at nature from this height, and we're not going to see the different game trail. So when you're looking for animal runs where the animals are coming and going, you actually want to drop yourself down to the height of that actual animal. And it'll almost look like a little tunnel. So I found one right here. So if I'm looking from up here down into the vegetation, you can't actually see that there's an animal run. But if you squat down, you can actually see where the debris has been pushed down. And if you know anything about tracking, and I'll teach you about tracking later, you can actually identify which animal is going through that. Well, that's pretty important if you're going to set up your trap. You want to make sure that your trap matches the type of animal that you're going to try to catch. This particular trap I'm going to show you, I've caught ground squirrels, chipmunks, mice, pack rats, pretty small mammals. That's what we're looking for. I tell people that when you walk out into nature, the elk isn't just going to drop for you and give you a meal. You're going to have to set up lots and lots of traps. It's called passive hunting, where you're not actively trying to get meat. You set up your traps, you walk away, and they're hunting for you. There's also more small animals than large animals. So even though you might think that a little trap and a little tiny mouse is not going to feed you, if you set up 10 of these and you caught 8 mice, then suddenly you're making meat. So let's go ahead and show you the components to the trap, and I'm going to guide you step by step on how I actually make it in the field. Alright, well, the first component we need a stick to set up our trigger. So what I'm looking for is a nice straight smooth branch that's as long as your hang loose sign and not thicker than your first finger thickness. So let me go ahead and show you how to cut a branch if you don't have a saw with just a blade. What we want to do is we want to put the sapling under tension, and what that's going to do is it's going to force the fibers to, when you make your cut, they'll pop open, and it actually helps you make one cut so you don't have to saw something. So I'm going to take my knife here, I'm going to bend the sapling and make my cut right on the bend, and you'll see how fast this is. So I'm just going to bend my material down, and now I'm just going to do what's called a push cut. So I'm pushing forward with my knife, okay, like that, and it just pops right off. Okay guys, now that you have your stick cut, this is going to become your trigger. This is actually going to become 2 parts. So once again, I just measure using a hang loose sign, and then that's going to get you right. We're making the trap once again for mice, ground squirrels, little furry friends. So I'm going to do that beaver chipping cut going around again, and on both sides. So it's just like a beaver would chip out wood. It makes it a lot easier if you don't have a saw. And ironically, we don't actually want to cut this with a saw, because then the ends are going to be too smooth and it's not going to be able to support the rock very well. So once I cut the beaver chip, I'm going to put my 2 thumbs on either side, push down real quick. I'll hear a crack, and then do the other side, and that usually releases it. So here's my 2 parts. Okay, so one of the parts is going to become the post. If they're unequal in size, I usually use the longest one for my post, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to carve out a wedge. It's as easy as that. The other one you can just pocket for a second. So I'm going to go ahead and make my post. So all I need to do is just cut like a spatula end on one side. So I'm just going to make almost a 45-degree angle here. And then what I want to do, once I have this cut like that, I want to flatten the other side, because this is where the clip is going to rest. So I just take my knife and usually it's just removing the bark. Really, that's all you need to do to flatten it. Be sure you flip the stick around, make it easy to carve, and then that's it, lickety split. So I have a flat back, and I have a ramp. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to dress the top. Sometimes I'll just take a rock and just grind it flat on a sandstone or anything that's abrasive enough. Here I could just take my knife and just kind of dress the top. If you go carefully, you won't split the wood too bad. But once again, it is green wood, so it wants to cut really easily. Now, when I'm setting up my triggers, I don't like to use wood that's too soft. So what I'll do is I'll make these triggers using green wood, and then I'll just basically wait till the next morning to set my trigger. If you use green wood when you're setting your trigger and the wood hasn't dried all the way, there becomes a stickiness to it, and the trigger won't actually activate when an animal pulls the bait. So here's what I got. Once again, I have a ramp and I have a flat backing, and I've dressed the top so it's nice and flat. This is going to support the weight of the clip that has the rock resting on top of it. So this part's done. It's that easy. So the next part is I'm going to take this end and I'm going to turn it into the clip, and I'll show you how the two pieces join together. So to do the clip, I'm going to make what's called a J cut or a number 7 cut. So you can remove the bark if you want, it doesn't matter. I know that I'm going to need a flat side, so I'm just going to go ahead and flatten out one piece of my stick, just like that. Okay, and then what I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut what's called a stop cut. A stop cut is a marker into the wood where no excess wood can be carved through. So I'm going to take a baton and just hammer my knife into this wood just a little bit to make what's called a stop cut. Alright, to make a stop cut, it's really simple. You obviously don't want to drive your knife into the ground, so I just put a little stick underneath it, and then you can just grab anything that's heavy, like a log or whatever. Obviously you wouldn't want to use a rock, but I'm just going to go ahead and lay my knife against this stick right here, and I'm just going to do a light tap to make a little mark into that stick. So here it is. Alright, and so I pop it off, and now I have a mark. Okay, and it's nice and deep. Now this is going to allow me to not cut all the way through the wood when I make my next cuts. So what I need to do is I need to make a pretty steep little angle into the wood, and this is going to be the clip part. So this is going to rest onto the post, which is what we just carved. So without that stop cut, it's really, really hard to know where to stop when you're cutting. That's literally what it means. So now look at how steep that angle is that I got. And this is called a number 7 cut because on the side it looks like the number 7. It's also called a J cut. So now I need to flatten out the rest of the material to match how deep I went with this first incision. So I'm just going to remove the rest of this material on the flat side. Okay, so I'm just going to cut off that real quick. Oops. All right, we're pretty much ready to rock and roll. I have my I have my number 7 cut. Okay, and so now I can see how they match. So I'm going to take my post and I'm going to put the flat part of the post against the flat part of my clip. And what I like to do is just kind of do a preliminary push down just to see if they all kind of match, and they do. So I don't have it like popping out, doing anything weird. If I have that compression, it's going to hold itself up. Okay guys, so the next thing we got to think about is the animal's not just going to crawl underneath the rock and make dinner for us. We have to bait it in. For bait, especially here in the Southwest, we have lots and lots of choices. I'll use the inner pulp of the cactus pad from the prickly pear. We use barrel cactus fruits. There is a lot you can use. If you're going to use, like, some people say, oh, use peanut butter. Well, not a lot of people carry peanut butter. But if you have like a power bar wrapper, I found that you don't even have to give them actual food. It's just the smell of food will bring the animals around, especially something shiny that draws them in. So once again, I'm just going to use some vegetation, or if I have scraps of meat or you know, field dressing parts, I can actually tie that onto my serve as bait. So what I need to do is I need to get the string onto here. So I'm going to use just the clip part itself. And what I found that I like to do is I'm going to cut a little groove around the base of the clip. And that's going to accommodate where the string's going to go. You can definitely use natural cordage like yucca rope, agave, and I show how to do that in other videos. So definitely check those out. Because being able to make cordage in the wilderness is a very, very important skill. Because if you can make cord in the woods, you can get meat. And that will save your life, of course. So I'm just working my way around. I have a groove cut around it. And now I'm going to do it to the back side to keep the trigger from getting tripped just by the width of the string. So here I am. I'm just going to do a quick cut forward and a quick cut back. So it's called a V. So I have a, if you look on the side, it looks like a V groove going around that thing. So I love using natural cordage to set my traps because it doesn't make the animals so suspicious. So definitely check out how to do the yucca cordage in my next videos. So I just have a pair of, I just have a piece of bank line right here. I like to do a simple little overhand knot. It doesn't have to be much because basically we're just trying to get the animal to tug on this. So I'm just going to tie this off. You can use whatever knot you like. There's no rules in survival. It just has to work, right? So here we go. I'll just do a quickie knot. Alright, so now that I have my knot tied onto my clip, I want to make sure the knot is not on the back side because it's going to kick out my set and make it to trigger too quickly. So I'm just going to move that knot to the front, just tugging it around, and here we go. Okay, so now the clip is ready. Okay, so I have an accommodation for the string. And now when I set my two parts together, it's going to look like this. I like to have the string go pretty far to the back of the rock, and I'm going to go get the rock and show you, so that it takes time for the animal, once they tug on the bait, to actually escape from the falling rock. So let me go ahead and get the rock, and I'll go ahead and finish off showing how to set this up. Okay guys, so here's what we have to do, is we have to find a rock, a flat rock. I'll show you when we were up in the mountains for how to use just a log to set up your deadfall. But in the Southwest, it's really not hard to find a nice big flat rock. You want the rock to be 3 times the weight of the animal you're trying to dispatch, just to make sure that you're not making the animal suffer. So if the animal's 10 pounds, you want a 30-pound rock. You can always add weights to the back of your rock, just basically tying other rocks to it to get that extra weight. Also, when you set up your trap, you want to make sure that the ground is nice and hard underneath the deadfall, so when it lands, the animal doesn't have any cushion. So we want to make sure we pancake that animal. So a common problem that people have when they set up their trap is the ground will be too soft, and they'll set up their trigger and it'll actually bury itself into the ground. So what I like to do is I like to stage a rock underneath to where my trigger is actually going to rest on. It needs to be flush with the ground, so you need to bury it down a little bit. Otherwise the post might just go right into the soft earth. The next thing you want to do is you want to shuffle the actual rock side to side a little bit to help it settle itself in. So it's not going to wag itself this way. So I want to kind of ground it in by making a slight groove. So all I do is I'm just going to go like this to kind of set the rock a little bit. Alright, so we've set our stone by doing the side to side shuffle. Now animals would love to eat their meal in a nice secure cave. And also what I want to do is I want to kind of help funnel the animal into my trap and make it harder for it to escape. So what I'll do is I'll take material like sticks and that sort of thing, and you can actually make blockages to force an animal into your trap certain directions. Once again, I like to have my animal getting the bait from the very back of the trap, so by the time it starts to run out, it's still gonna not have enough time to escape. So I usually will put some kind of barrier on this side and some kind of barrier on this side to force it to go all the way to the farthest point possible. Now to set the trigger, it's really easy. That's why I love this trigger set. You just pinch it from both sides, kind of like you're holding a stick. Keep it held like that, and all you have to do is lift up your rock, and it's just playing the game of balance. So there it is, it's that fast. Now I'm going to take my string and I would tie my bait to the end of the string. Sometimes if you have peanut butter, you don't even have to tie anything to it. You can just rub food smells onto the end, and the animal is still going to be curious about it and tug on it. Once again, you want to block off these areas so the animal doesn't do a side thing, pull it and get your bait. So here I am. I'm going to have it all the way back here like this. And what's going to happen is I'll go ahead and trigger it. So when the animal pulls on it, because the clip is on the post, it actually just pivots out and the whole thing collapses. So let's go ahead and set it up. So we'd have a little bunny or a little ground squirrel pulling on our trap, and it's that fast. So you can see that what's nice about this trigger also is when it breaks apart, one part is not going to be left behind, and you don't have this situation where it ends up still propping up the rock. So it just breaks apart super fast, and now you got dinner. So once again, thanks for joining me with Southwest Survival. Be sure you subscribe and check out my website for more skills at southwestsurvival.com. Thanks again.